It was a warm afternoon as Vian and her friends strolled through the bustling streets. The sun shone brightly overhead, and the air was filled with the sound of chirping birds and the chatter of people passing by. However, amidst the lovely atmosphere, there was an air of unease surrounding Vian. Despite her objection, her mafia boyfriend had instead of providing her with a bodyguard, and now a stern-looking man followed her every move. As they walked, her friends couldn't help but steal glances at the guard. His imposing presence and serious expression made him feel a little uncomfortable. They tried to act natural and make small talk with Vian, but their eyes kept darting back to the bodyguard, who was standing a few steps behind her. She caught her friend's glances at the bodyguard behind her and rolled her eyes in frustration. She turned around and whispered to him quietly, Vian, I am alright, you can go now. The guard merely shook his head, his expression unchanged. I have my orders, he replied sternly. She gritted her teeth, feeling frustration bubble up inside of her. She turned back to her friends, trying to act normal, but the discomfort was palpable. Her friend Alex, who had just arrived, noticed the unease in the group. He approached her and whispered, Alex, what's up with the bodyguard? He looks like he is ready to kick someone's ass. She sighed in frustration and rolled her eyes again. Why? Don't even ask, she muttered back. It's my boyfriend. He thinks I need a freaking bodyguard, even though I told him I don't need one. She was fed up with the guard's constant presence, so she decided to go shopping alone. She turned to the bodyguard and said firmly, Vian, I don't need you to follow me. I can take care of myself. However, the guard remained stoic and didn't budge from his position. I have my orders to protect you, he stated flatly. Her irritation grew as the bodyguard continued to trail behind her. She tried to lose him by quickly walking through the crowd, but he stayed hot on her heels. Finally, she turned around and snapped at him. Man, can you not follow me around like a lost puppy? I know how to take care of myself. Her outburst didn't seem to faze the bodyguard, who remained quietly resolute. He simply shook his head and continued to follow her. Staying a few feet behind, his stoic expression remained unchanged, unaffected by her frustration. She stopped abruptly and turned to face the guard, her hands clenched into fists at her side. Why, that's it, she said firmly. I am saying this for the last time. Go back. I don't need your protection. I can handle myself just fine on my own. The guard looked at her impassively. My apologies, ma'am, but I have my orders from both. I cannot disobey without risking dire consequences. She gritted her teeth in frustration and launched towards the guard, grabbing onto his hair and pulling it forcefully. She then proceeded to unlash a barrage of blows on his body, but in a comical fashion she made creative sounds of grunts and shouts as if she was in a cartoon fight. When she was done, the guard was left with amused hair and bewildered expression on his face. The scene was so surreal that my friend couldn't help but burst into laugh at the sight. The guard, stunned by her unexpected attack, looked at with amused hair and bewildered expression. He had never anticipated that someone would treat him like a punching bag, much less someone as small as her. She waved goodbye to her friend and climbed into the car, her frustrated expression still evident on her face, the car still looking disheveled from her earlier attack. Got into the driver's seat and cranked the engine. As they arrived, she stormed into the lounge, where Jungkook was working on some paperwork. Her frustration and anger boiled over, and she stomped her foot like a child having a tantrum. Tears streamed down her face as she unleashed her pent-up emotions on her mafia boyfriend. Vian, why did you send that bodyguard after me? Vian yelled, I told you I can take care of myself. I don't need a babysitter. He looked up from his work, his expression a mix of surprise and amusement. He leaned back in his chair and raised an eyebrow at her outburst. Jungkook, I sent him because I care about you, he replied calmly. I want to ensure your safety. She plopped down next to him on the couch, tears streaming down her face. She buried her head in his chest and whined like a child. When he's so annoying, he doesn't listen to anything I say, and he just follows me everywhere I go. It's driving me crazy. The guard entered the room, his hair still disheveled from Ryan's earlier attack. He stood there looking somewhat dazed and defeated. He looked from the guard to Ryan in disbelief. He couldn't believe she had physically attacked the guard he had assigned to protect her. Jungkook, did you did you do this to his hairs? He asked incredulously. She looked up at him, her expression defiant. Ryan, yes I did, she said with a hint of pride in her voice. He was following me around like a lost puppy and he wouldn't listen to me. It's his own fault for being so stubborn. The guard couldn't help but let out a small huff of annoyance at her words. Despite the tough kid, he was actually embarrassed by the state of his hair. He couldn't help but chuckle at the scene in front of him. He had never seen her so feisty before, and he had to admit it was a bit endearing. He looked at her with an amused expression on his face. Jungkook, sweetheart, he is my most feared guard, he said, still chuckling at the sight of his guard's disheveled appearance. And you managed to beat him up and mess up his hairs like that? Fine, yeah, I did, she said with a cheeky smile. He was being a nuisance, so I took matters into my own hands. He signaled for the guard to leave the room. Once the guard was gone, he turned his attention back to Anne, who was still sitting next to him, her head resting on his chest. Jungkook, he said, running a hand through her hair. I am not sure if I should be impressed or annoyed with you right now. She looked up at him innocently, her wide eyes framed by long lashes. When impressed, obviously, she replied with a smirk. I took down your most fair guard, didn't I? He rolled his eyes but couldn't help grinning at her sassy response. Jungkook, you're lucky I find your fistiness adorable, he said, pulling her closer to him. She cuddled up to him, wrapping her arms around his neck. Wine, I know, she replied smugly. That's why you put up with me, even when I do crazy things like beating up your guards. He chuckled and ruffled her hairs affectionately. Jungkook, you drive me crazy, you know that? He said, shaking his head in mock expression. Why, yeah, but you love me anyway, she replied, sticking out her tongue playfully. Admit it. Jungkook, I do, he conceded, his expression softening, even when you are being so abrupt and taking down my guards. He leaned in, his eyes fixed on her face, and pressed his lips softly against her. Her breath caught in her throat as his touch ignited a spark within her, and she melted against him, returning the kiss with equal fervor. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them in their own private bubble of affection and desire.